Welcome to Sword and Shield, the official podcast of the 960th Cyberspace Wing. Join us for insight, knowledge, mentorship, and some fun as we discuss relevant topics in and around our wing. Please understand that the views expressed in this podcast are not necessarily the views of the U.S. Air Force nor the Air Force Reserve, and no endorsement of any particular person or business is ever intended.
Welcome to this episode of the Sword and Shield. I am Chief Baber, the 960th Cyberspace Wing Command Chief, and today we are truly honored to have as our guest Chief Master Sgt. Timothy White, the Senior Enlisted Advisor to the Chief of the Air Force Reserve and Command Chief for the Air Force Reserve Command. Good morning, Chief.
Good morning, Billy. How are you?
Good. How are you today?
I am doing great. Thank you for asking.
Awesome. So thanks so much for taking time to sit and chat with us today. I know you have an extremely busy schedule, and like I said, we're just honored to have you here. You have just had the most amazing career in the Air Force. You've held multiple positions within maintenance and as a senior enlisted leader at the wing, NAF, and now at the MAJCOM level. Since we've known each other, which has been several years now, okay. You've had on a few occasions emphasized the importance of personal and professional growth.
Right.
What particular events in your life, in your career, can you recall that helped you grow?
So first of all, Billy, thank you so much, and it's amazing that you put on this podcast. I mean, what a way to communicate. Speaking of professional growth, I missed an opportunity to do something that you're doing here. So there's always room for improvement. So I think I need to make sure that I carve out some time and making sure that I'm connecting with the audience like you are here. So I think just over the years, just opportunities, I was always comfortable being uncomfortable. I never worried about being the smartest guy in the room in any setting. I knew that I was never the smartest guy in the room. And then if you ever find yourself when you're the smartest in the room, then you probably need to go to another room. And so that's always been my mindset. And I'm a firm believer in anything, whether it's sports, work, your jobs, your position. Once you get to a spot in your career where you don't feel challenged or you feel that you've mastered your craft, that's the time for you to try something else. So that's always been my mindset, and I've pretty much always applied that in any position that I've ever been in.
Awesome, thank you. So you talk about being comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Yeah.
So you come from a very technical background of maintenance, and being in the cyberspace wing, very technical operators. Right. I'm having a hard time transitioning the technical to the strategic. My superintendents, my cells, into wanting to become command chiefs and more strategic leaders. So when did you know that you wanted to get out of the maintenance technical and start leading strategically?
Well, you know what? As a matter of fact, as I looked at it, it was my then commander who really pushed me out. I think we were probably I'd probably been in the squadron about 3 years now. And so he called me in his office one day, and we're still, Colonel Sabinsky, he just recently retired, still good friends to this day. He called me into the office and he said, "Hey, what's next for you?" And he was looking at, hey, maybe I need to go into another squadron or something. And at the time, command chief wasn't even in my on the horizon for me, and it was kind of an uncomfortable situation because I'm looking at it like, hey, I thought we had a good thing going here, and now you're trying to move me someplace else so you can probably get somebody else in. And then one day he said that hey, that you should be a command chief, and at the time I was like, hey, don't say that too loud, somebody might hear you, or even worse, take you serious. And so he was the one that I would say that really started that conversation. Never really looked at it as something that I wanted to do because, like a lot of your cyber operators, I was good at maintenance, and that's what I knew, and I was comfortable with doing it. But it's usually, and even sometimes with your operators, not some of the things that we see in ourselves, but that others see in you, that say that, hey, you have what it takes to push the ball forward, and will often challenge you. So never really backed down from a challenge, and I think once that challenge was proposed to me, that's when I kind of took it a little serious. I don't think we're ever really prepared for these opportunities, but you just got to be prepared to take on the challenge, and that's how it kind of started. So I completely understand, and with your cyber op, because they do the cyber mission for a reason. For one, there's a passion for it, and they're good at it. And a lot of times it's a conflict because we believe that we can't still do something we love to take on these, but you can do both. You can step out of your comfort zone, take on a leadership opportunity, and the star is not the end all be all. You can go and do that, come back, and if you want it to be the cyber functional, you can do some of those things. So it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to completely give up your passion. We just have to make it as senior leaders. We have to make and create pathways and avenues for people to explore some of those opportunities, and then if they so desire, to come back and do what they really love.
Awesome. So I love that story because it was a commander and a colonel who kind of pushed you to your potential, and I think it's important that those stories are told so our officers know the influence that they have on us, because I think sometimes that gets lost. Right, the enlisted take care of the enlisted, and the officers kind of that misconception.
Yeah, and he was a major at the time when we had that conversation.
See.
So even more important is for our younger officers to do that and to mentor us.
Awesome. So Chief, when you came in, one of your lines of efforts were deliberate talent management. Yeah. And I just had the opportunity to observe the cyber development team board and watched how they vectored our folks and for future opportunities. So in your time in that seat, how did you see that progress from day one into right now?
Yeah, so you know what, it's funny because it's almost like when you become the MAGCOM Command Chief or the Chief of Air Force Reserve or Command Chief Air Force Reserve, it's almost like kind of a rite of passage, right? Hey, what are your line of efforts? So I was really hesitant about releasing anything or putting anything out that would take away from our three strategic priorities. Mm-hmm. But as I got within my circle of trust and we started thinking, I started to think about, hey, what has been my struggle along the during this journey? And when I took the seat, it was like, hey, you become a command chief, and after your 3 years, just apply if something else is open. And so we really didn't have a plan, and so I took that on, and I think that one of the first things that we did was put in some support with the Chiefs group. We eventually got Chief Jim Loper up there to take that on, and he has done an amazing job. I mean, they have taken that the Chiefs group further than I could have ever imagined. And Jimmy and I went through some of the same pain because we kind of grew up together, and he went through the same struggles. Mm-hmm. So what I didn't want to do is that we ask you to assume these positions and step out of your comfort zone, but then we don't support you along the way, or we don't provide avenues, or we don't have any directions, or we tell you at the end of your assignment, hey, good luck, and try and find something. So that was one of the ones that I think one of the LOEs that it was easy for me to really get behind, because I felt that pain, and I know that there was a lot of people before me, even some during my tenure, that we could have done better when it comes to delivered talent management. So a lot of times, I think from the outside looking in, it can appear that I focus on chief and I focus on the senior tier level of the enlisted force, but it's just the opposite. I believe that if we get the right leaders, senior leaders in this case, if we get them in the right positions and we we really develop and mentor them and strategically place them, then it will have a trickle down effect, and it's going to impact the units all the way down to the squadron, because it's really that the junior airman NCO tier that I'm primarily concerned about. And I think just with delivery talent management, we got to start left of the bang. By the time you become chief, that is not, or command chief, that is not the time that we need to start trying to determine, hey, what's best for you in your career. We need to have those conversations long ago. So extremely proud of the efforts that we did, and extremely proud of that LOE, because I think that's the one area where I think I've seen the most, or the quickest growth.
No, absolutely. When sitting on the cyber DT was actually one of your accomplishments as the AFRC command chief, and it was really beneficial to sit on a cyber DT,
right,
and offer the command chief perspective.
Right.
And when we talk about where the technical and the strategic kind of meet, I think that's a perfect place for it to meet. And you talk about focusing on the tech sergeants and the staff sergeants, and this DT, they actually vectored tech sergeants,
right,
which I thought was phenomenal. They actually took the time and went through each tech sergeant and said, hey, you're here, this is where you need to be. So huge strides when it comes to talent management in the Air Force Reserve, definitely since I've come in.
Yeah.
Vectoring a tech sergeant wasn't in the stars, 10 years ago, 5 years
Right.
ago. So just amazing steps towards that. And to have the perspective of the command chief just kind of observing, right? Not
Right.
overstepping the bounds,
Right.
and answering questions, I think was hugely beneficial. And I think a lot of DTs, technical DTs, the would benefit from having that
Agreed.
strategic on the board.
Agree,
So,
and that's great, because you get the leadership viewpoint, and then you also get the technical
Yes.
aspect of it. Because at the same time, what I may be looking for, what you may be looking for as a command chief, could be completely different than what someone in the functional community is looking for, or even commanders, right?
Exactly.
What they're looking for.
Yep.
So for me, even as a command chief, hey, I'm looking for who's going to be the best person for the wing, who's going to be a wing asset, and the typical squadron commander is probably looking at who's going to be the best person for his or her squadron. So I think by combining those boards, by having the leadership track and also the functional all in the same room, you get that cross perspective, and I think that gives us a better product in the end.
absolutely, and a lot of education. I learned a lot.
Oh yeah,
Sitting on a DT and in the cyber.
always do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Chief, so you've had, like I mentioned before, you've just had an amazing career. And, now that you can kind of sit back and look at all the wonderfulness that came out of your career, is there anything that you think you would have done differently?
Anything that I could have done differently in my career. For one, I know I could always have done better, and hindsight is 2020. So I'm not sure if there's anything that I would have done differently. But sometimes you just learn from your mistakes, and I've learned plenty of them. But what I've also learned is it's all about perspectives, right? And we can beat ourselves up because things didn't go as planned, and things rarely go as planned. But then what do you do with it? About it? It was funny. So when we talk about perspectives, I got in here extremely late, this morning, simply because there was an incident at the airport, and it just backed a whole bunch of flights back, and I think they canceled. It was probably about 9 flights, and I'm sitting in this line, and there are customers, and irate. You can imagine. So, they're walking up to the ticket counter, and man, they are just. Just within that few minutes, everybody has a problem. Everybody has an issue. Everybody has a you name it, and really for the poor representative at sitting at the counter, it's out of her control,
Right.
right? So I've always kind of looked at as things that happened or occurred in my career, even in places or areas where I could have done better. What's in my control and what's not under my control, and then so how do you actually even react to those things that are outside of your control? So for me, my litmus test has always been, hey, did anybody die? And what I mean by that is things don't go according to plan. We could have done better, or mistakes happen. Mistakes will happen, but at the end of the day, if nobody got severely hurt, injured, or you name it, then hey, guess what? We can do over, and then we can learn from it. But the most important things are the things that didn't go as according to plan during our tenure, during our seat, while we had the seat. Hey, is that something that you're going to share with the next person, with your successor? And then so hopefully they will take a look at some of the areas where you didn't do as well, and take some lessons learned and continue to push the ball forward. So those are, I think, in short, Billy, has always, again, been my mindset. Really not focused on the things, because we can always do better. And if anybody ever tells you that they completely knocked it out of the park or they killed it, either one, they're lying, or two, really don't have an accurate assessment of how they performed in the seat. So you just learn from it, share what you learned, and then hopefully some of the things that you didn't do as well, somebody else will come behind you and do better, and that's the way that you always have to look at it.
So that's awesome, and you talk about perspective, and that's huge.
Yeah.
Right? Because the first time I heard you say, "Did anybody die?" I was like, that was life changing. Especially as a young chief moving up through the group superintendent and through the command chief, you tend to take things very seriously, right? Because you don't want to mess up. You're taking care of folks. You don't want to mess up. And so you're just stressed consistently. And then that was a perspective that you had offered me that it helps me to this day. And if you ask anybody in the wing, I say it quite a bit, right? Yeah. It's not a big deal that anybody die. Like, we will recover from it.
Right.
So, so lastly, what advice would you give your successor?
Yeah, so the advice that I would give my successor is to be you, right? So I can't be Erica Kelly, I can't be Chief Kirksky, so I wouldn't expect anyone to be Tim White, because what resonates for some people and may not resonate with others, right? So you just got to be you. You just got to be genuine and enjoy the moment. Even this morning when we talk about perspectives, when I got here, literally probably about it was almost 3:00. I think when I went to bed last night, and I was like, when you said, hey, if we need to push it back, I was like, hey, Billy, I'm gonna get there. Don't worry about it. We'll stay on track. I was running a little late, but even a day like yesterday, or if you look at all the things that we went through within the past 3 years, from us, or since the time that I've been in the seat, started with financial issues, budgets. COVID kicked off, civil unrest, Afghanistan, now the war in Ukraine. You name it. It has been tough. But despite those days, every single day, there wasn't a single day that I put on this uniform and I said, I have to, or I went into work and said, I have to. Every day for me has been I get to put on this uniform. I get to go to work. I get to work with some amazing people, because very few people have the opportunity to serve in the capacities that we serve, or do what we do, or wear the uniform. So it's a blessing. Again, it's all about perspective. So if you look at it like that, and if that's your outlook on life, I think that will help you navigate through some of the challenges, because my challenges were different than my predecessors, and my successors' challenges are going to be different than mine. But then you just gotta be you, and that would be the success, or the advice that I would give to my successor.
Awesome. So Chief White, again, thank you for coming and chatting with us today and offering your perspective. And you ended it with just be you.
Yeah.
And I think that is very, very important, to be genuine, so your airmen can relate. And sir, I think you've nailed it. So thank you for absolutely everything that you do in your position. I know it's not easy. I know it's hard to get up at 3 or go to bed at 3 in the morning and get here on time, and I do appreciate that. But there's just so much in your seat, and there's so much of you that you give to our airmen and to our force, and for that, I thank you.
Well, I thank you too, Billy. And, you and I, we go back when we talk about when we first met. And it was Chief Orientation Course.
Yes, sir.
And then I had the opportunity to be a mentor for the Command Chief Orientation Course.
Yes,
so
sir.
we've, since day one, since then, I mean, I've followed you and I've watched you grow, and to go from the Rio deck to take on ARPC and then to come here to the wing, the men and women here are lucky to have you, because I mean you're definitely someone special. You have been all those things, and if you think about it, all those things that I kind of mentioned, hey, you were right there at the table with me, all right, helping me, helping us, helping this command get through some of those things. And nobody does this alone. It takes a team, it takes a wingman, and you have been a wingman for me, so I thank you for that.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that.
All right, Billy.